Yeah, probably after the yesterday morning news that NEET got cancelled, lot of people were awakening in the middle of the night. Is it real or not? Huh? Do I still have time till March? So you can hold your good guess until 29th. Then 29th night you can happily sleep, because there will be only 2 weeks time for the NEET exam. So the point is there is a deciding point. Anything can happen in a democracy. Now doctor, coming to the pH of the tubular fluid, why in the distal nephron it is lower than that in proximal tubule? I know most of you what you might have answered. Hydrogen ion is secreted from the distal nephron than in the proximal tubule. That is your answer, right? See doctor, the distal tubule has got very tight junctions between the cells, and the H plus ion gradient is only 10 to 1 in proximal tubule, but 1000 to 1 in the case of distal nephron, which enables the acidification of the urine, making the pH become lower. Not due to the secretion happens, but that is not the direct reason. Now, you are being given some calculations and asked to calculate renal plasma flow. Last time we discussed, no, GFR calculation, renal plasma flow. These two formulae are going to help you to survive the NEET. So, urinary PAH into volume by the plasma PAH will give you. So 30 into 1.0 divided by 6 is equal to 500 ml per minute. But the pH is 90% of the actual renal blood flow. So that is the reason the ultimate value becomes 555, which makes the answer B the correct answer, is what I want to underscore. Now coming to the lower esophageal sphincteric pressure. Lower esophageal sphincteric pressure. It is the myogenic properties of the lower esophageal sphincter smooth muscle which will be responsible for the pressure in the lower esophageal sphincter. It is not a real sphincter like an anal sphincter, but it is a smooth muscle with a high pressure zone, is what we need to appreciate. Anything which is left inside the lungs after complete expiration can't be calculated by spirometer, because spirometer can only calculate the air which is blown into it. So anywhere residual volume is a part of the calculation, spirometer cannot calculate. So residual volume, functional residual capacity, total lung capacity, इन तीन चीजों में residual volume है. So इसलिए inspiratory capacity is the one which can only be calculated by the spirometer out of all these values. What is the role of Golgi tendon organs? There will be 2 pages in the Ganon's physiology. Golgi tendon organ, 1A afferents, 1B afferents. Same 2 pages, whether it is Shambhulingam's physiology or anything. But you need to read that, because it's a favorite topic of the examiner. Extrafusal, intrafusal, what do they mean? Now doctor, the Golgi tendon organ is located in the tendon of the skeletal muscles, and it is in series, not parallel with the muscle. Every time the muscle contracts, the Golgi tendon organ is stretched, and it will be informing the central nervous system about how much tension has developed inside the muscle. And it is the 1B afferent fibers which innervate the Golgi tendon organ, which carry all these afferent signals, is what you need to remember. Whereas the speed of shortening of the muscle and the length of the muscle, they are all informed to the CNS by using 1A afferents, which innervate the intrafusal fibers within the muscle spindles. So muscle spindle, Golgi tendon organ, today only you are going to review, which is one of the important issue for the examiner. Now doctor, Circadian rhythm, you all know, no? Yes, I know that it is a suprachiasmatic nucleus. Which is the important neurotransmitter which is involved? Is an important question. In the functioning of the suprachiasmatic nucleus is my question to all of you. Melatonin is an answer coming from Dr. Manu, Guntur, everybody. Melatonin? That's right. It is the norepinephrine which I am expecting an answer from you. And it is the norepinephrine which is essential, and it is the suprachiasmatic nucleus. Yes, melatonin is also an essential part of it. Okay. Now, whenever some anxious person is hyperventilating, why do they go into hypocalcemic tetany? Typically, when you are hyperventilating, what are you doing? You are losing CO2. If there is no CO2, there is no carbonic acid. If there is no carbonic acid, there is no H+. If there is no H+, that leads to respiratory alkalosis. Respiratory alkalosis will increase the negative charges on the albumin, and increased negative charges on the albumin will sequester the ionic calcium into a bound form. So the free ionic calcium is less available. If there is low ionic calcium, then the depolarization of the nerve will increase, and that increase the excitability of the nerve, that throws the muscles into tetany, is what we have to basically appreciate. That is, the membrane excitability is related to the depolarization, but the depolarization and the opening of the sodium channels in turn are related to the extracellular calcium. The lower the extracellular calcium, the easier for the sodium channels to open, and there will be higher amount of nervous excitability, which is commonly responsible for the tetany, which you see with respiratory alkalosis in a hyperventilating anxious individual, is what need to be basically remembered. Now coming to the myopathic individual, how can you improve his muscle power? If you decrease the interval between contractions of the skeletal muscle, the force produced will be higher with successive contractions, because there is a phenomenon of summation. Summation of the action potentials will be more if the latency between two successive contractions is lesser, is what we have to fundamentally appreciate. What is the role of glossopharyngeal? You know that the carotid body chemoreceptors will be sensing the afferent pathway is carried by the glossopharyngeal, and the vagus constitutes the afferent pathway for which receptors? For the aortic receptors, the J receptors, the irritant airway receptors, and the rapidly stretching receptors like the Hering-Breuer's reflex. For all of them it is the vagus. Whereas for the carotid chemoreceptors, it is the Hering's nerve, which is basically the glossopharyngeal nerve, not the vagus, is what you have to fundamentally appreciate. When the baby cries for the first time, what will happen? Typically that will decrease the hypoxic pulmonary vasoconstriction. Normally the pulmonary vessels have got a very high level of resistance in the embryonic life because of the hypoxic pulmonary vasoconstriction. But the first time when the baby breathes the air in, then the oxygen levels in the alveoli increase. Increased alveolar oxygen will lead to pulmonary vasodilation, and decreasing the pulmonary vascular resistance is what need to be remembered. What is meant by phase 4 depolarization? You know, depolarization occur in two scenarios. What are they? First time when there is an action potential spike, depolarization occur. Whereas automatic cells like pacemaker cells, they have a phase 4 depolarization. Now what is the difference between the two? Phase 4 depolarization is basically caused by the activation of the sodium channels. But the difference is, the sodium channels typically get activated when there is a hyperpolarization in case of phase 4, and during the spike of the action potential they get opened at the time of depolarization. That is the difference between sodium channel opening, between depolarization, during the initial spike, and the phase 4 is what you have to fundamentally appreciate. During phase 4, what else will occur? Sodium channels open in response to hyperpolarization. Potassium conductance will decrease, and the potassium outflow also will typically diminish, is what need to be remembered.